Reload Elite Series, I'm pretty sure it's known as the what World Cup.
Championship. The competition is stacked, so make sure to tune in February 7th to see who will earn their plate.
Now to go straight on. Not too good. Should be playing now. Good, just tried to snipe me. Oh. I was meant to pick up hills. GG's chat. Alright, chat, that was disappointing, to say the least. Jesus. I keep getting shockwaves. I know I'll get dropped. Someone sued me for... For that aim, someone sent me to... Hold up. I can redeem it. It's redeemable. Some random kid just landed. Is it still redeemable? Yeah. Oh my lordy lord. Oh, I missed, chat. What is this, bro? Why is everyone under the bridge? Why is everyone under the bridge? Yep. Why is he lagging? I'm not even worried because I know he can't take my wall. Oh, and they both take it at the exact same time. I don't think game started yet. These are the youths I've been looking for my whole life. And also I'm switching these out before I like have a heart attack again. And now there's miss. At these. You are not using that in service. Where is that kid? Why are you landing? Why the fuck are you landing on me? There's no need. I'm a solo. I'm a fucking solo. And why is there no roof atop? Why the fuck am I speaking like this? I'm going crazy. Is there a glitch in this thing? I am going to check the what's it called soon. And let me down. I can't do anything. I guess one of you. Oh, you're one of those weirdos. I can't take my wall. Jeez, like, that's so weird. This kid's using simple, I'm not surprised. simple, it's the big 2-6. And then he just goes AFK like straight away. Oh no, he's actually playing now. But please say this fucking shit will start him. I'm done. Sit down! Oh, yeah, my character's gay. Yeah, I'm gonna I'm check the fucking thing. Hold up, chat. Yeah, so this is cool. I'm not surprised.
Duos, because landing to the south of Sky Scroll, but also Demus and Dart, our Polish powerhouse duo, are landing to the north, Levin.
Yes, this is a really good situation for them, Reese, right? We've sat here and talked about Slurpy Swamp being a great POI, and one of the biggest benefits of landing Slurpy Swamp is that center map positioning. And so they get that center map positioning without actually having to land that Slurpy and get involved in all that mess. This is really set up for them to do well today.
Absolutely, and you know, if you know anything about Reload, where you see these supply drops spawn, that actually shows you where the next zone's going. And then being mid-map, they have access to go to any of those as quickly as possible. Their coach then has already messaged me earlier in the week asking about it, so I know they're super prepped. Best position in the map for the most part. I definitely expect these guys to come into the top 5.
Hang on, Reese, are you coaching Coach Sven?
No, I would never. I would never be the source of information for lots of people. I would never do that. I would never dip my fingers in there.
Sounds like Reese
Source
might
of
have
information
some
for the whole
favourites.
Fortnite.com.
Whose favourite, though, is Sky and Scroll going into this one? Are they yours, Levin?
Look, I think ultimately, right, when you look at competitive Fortnite in EU in 2026, across Reload and Battle Royale, you have to say Sky and Scroll have just been the best team in EU, right? Like, they've just been so impressive in all the modes. And I think their biggest advantage today in this lobby, Reese, is that in a very chaotic Reload game, in a world where right now people are trying to figure out really what the meta of Reload is, and this is the first real test of what that is, a team like this where their chemistry is just so important. You look at the gameplay right now on your screens, the shockwaves make these endgames so chaotic, but these guys are so on the same page. They think the same, they play, you know, interchangeably at times, which will just give them a big advantage in this lobby.
Yeah, they've always figured out that meta, which allows them to play that chemistry so well. And in this, for the most part, they're just playing a lot of low ground because players are just shockwaving and chopping players out. How do you prevent that? Just go in the bottom layer. That's it. And that's basically what they're doing for the most part.
Can we actually switch focus slightly to the west side of the map just quickly while we have time? Because there's a Danish duo we haven't spoken about, and that is obviously Pablo Wingo and Chino, Reese. I'm incredibly excited to see them in this lobby, but do you think they're going to be in our top 3 tonight?
Oh, almost definitely. They're probably one of our best and most simple picks. Like, looking into last year, these were 2 of the best players undoubtedly on the region. You know, you had a FNCS win a second and then a really good placing at Globals despite being contested. They're one of the also teams who've come from a trio and then just stayed together as a duo to actually perform. You know, if you look through EU, most players have split up and gone a completely different way. This is proven success, so I'm interested to see how they end up doing here in Reload as well.
I don't have much to add other than the fact that they are crazy at the game.
Why is Redoxy not making it into the lobby tonight, though?
If I speak, prefer not to speak. You know, let's just say if Redoxy's top player. I love Redoxy, that's my guy. But you know, he's probably just not been as locked in as Pablo and Chino in 2026 when it comes to the Fortnite, at least, we'll say that.
Okay, Fortnite recession indicator. Frankie Ward making things really awkward on the desk. Right, it is time for game number 1 of the Fortnite Reload Elite Series. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
Come on, man, you know I'm always ready.
He's always ready! And so hopefully our attacker will Takata.
Look, Frankie, one thing's for sure, Reload stocks at an all-time high here today. And with the Elite Series Finals, first of 4, it's crazy to think about Takata. It has been a huge challenge, so many teams to overcome, even to make it into those heats in the first place. And now to see this set lobby play out in real time. We've got 8 matches that we're going to be breaking down, and this is the first of many.
Oh yeah, and to reiterate, we literally have not seen this caliber of competition in a Reload tournament before. So small things like upgrading your Morphite weapons, you're not going to get as many free tags to do that. Recovering from a knock or an elim. Once these players hear that rift in the sky, you're getting laser beamed in half a second. I mean, these players know what they're doing, and the battle bus is ready. So let's head right in to game 1.
Might as well call it Reboot Doomsday, because that's what it's going to feel like if you find yourself on the receiving end of those early eliminations. For some teams, it will be absolute feasting, others potential famine, but they're all trying to avoid it, and everyone just aiming to try and climb as high on that leaderboard as possible. But Malibuca and Vico, they waste absolutely no time. iDrop immediately going to be extinguished from the lobby. And Marius forced to just try and retreat, see if he can maybe create a little bit of space here. But you know, Vico, Malibuca, they are going to be on the hunt now. And they're not the only ones. I mean, you've also got Chap and Flixie nearby. But get a little bit of a run back. Pow went down. iDrop just not as swifty on the drop there. Malibuca just beaming him the moment he turns around.
Drop diff, iDrop Marius though, now pushing onto Vico in a 2v1, not only getting the knock full elim, now what I'm keeping in mind as well, the surrounding areas. One of the favorites, Sky and Scroll, will also be looking to later capitalize on this engagement, but for now, it looks like there's gonna be a bit of calmness to the storm.
It seemed a little bit greedy there from Vico. He wanted to try and just further pressure iDrop, just continue stacking up eliminations, because keep in mind, 3 points apiece. That is a big way to build up a lead here. But now Malibuca, Vico, forced to retreat, although temporary. Pixofsy also lurking in the distance, but Darm and Demish, they've already made their presence known. They seem as if they're also looking to get involved over by Slurpy Swamp. Far east though, Shark, Teeny. And there were rumors of potential splits here between Mumsy and Sato. Didn't really anticipate that these 2 teams would want to immediately clash head-to-head. Dirty Dogs certainly a POI that can be split both ways.
Yeah, we were kind of having talks. Will they be fighting each other? I mean, they're some very aggressive teams, but both elite veterans in the Fortnite space. So especially with the zone pulling far, the game plays out so fast, the map's so small. You can take those ticks early on, but we were talking about it. You know, that storm sickness, especially in a finals lobby, might end up being a bit prevalent, but Haris now in pink, playing the aggressive game.
Under this, he's just trying to see if he can bring down Podesai. He's gonna have to hope that Asa's gonna be able to back him up here, but dropped into the water, some nice shots exchanged, but Podesai, they're gonna wind up just looking for an even trade here. Well played to Pink to cover fire, but Podesai, he'll be forced for the reboot. Asa just doing what he can to try and scramble here. It's just so tough. Forced to retreat as deep as possible into Boomin base, but Pink, that is, they know that what kind of advantage they have to work with. And not only that, but these reboots are also going to draw the attention of some other teams. Pink, it is, now just looking to tag team Asa. He's doing everything in his power to just buy a little bit more time for his duo, and we still got trouble building at Slurpy. iDrop one more time, gonna bring it to Malibuca, only this time it's revenge. A nice elimination here to even up the score. Now 2 eliminations in total for iDrop and Vico. Malibuca maybe back to the drawing board here. I know our analyst desk was riding really high on Vico and Malibuca's performance in their heats, and for good reason. Those guys came out on top in Heat 1, and it didn't even seem all that close. They were really in control, but at the same time, iDrop and Marius, this is just a whole different tier of duos that you're dealing with.
This is what I love about Reload. You can go down off spawn and still have a chance to make that comeback and win that engagement. iDrop with 2 eliminations now as zones closed in. They're kind of taking pop shots back and forth at each other, but no full commit yet. We do have a duo on the edge of zone. It's going to be Flixie and Ko just kind of looking back, listening to the shots, but so far, we got a bit of farming time.
Well, Chap's already found 2 eliminations himself. Maybe a little bit of a review here for how that went down. Some nice pressure onto comeback. Chap, Flixie. Man, that is just the last thing you want to see on the other side, breaking down your walls. But Marius and iDrop, I am really impressed by the message they are sending very early on here. What initially seemed like it was going to ride heavily in Malibuca and Vico's favor. No, that bit of pushback, that could be kind of the opening scenes towards maybe creating a little bit of hesitation. And in this sort of format, with Reload being so fast action, I mean, Flixie, Chap, another elimination. Chap just already 9 points off elims, and Pix, comeback. This is going to be very problematic now because Pix doesn't have a whole lot of builds left to work with either. Not the loadout you want to see. I mean, maybe he can come out huge with this Sentinel shotgun, but at the same time, Takada, when you've got Flixie and Chap who just look so healthy, so stacked, you know that they're going to keep trying to punish comeback from the sky.
Yeah, I mean, that's the issue. You know, Reboot's technically disabled later on in the match, but for Pix and comeback here, with the amount of teams around them, I mean, you can basically count comeback as his Reboot's almost being disabled as well with the amount of times he might get farmed here. We'll see though, for Chap and Flixie, they are making use of their surroundings, getting those hard mats, and there's still quite a few players playing the Tix and Storm, making the way as Next Zone has appeared.
Still very impressive though. The kind of claims that Chap and Flixie have right now, a good position, and the fact that they can hold Pix for so long, it is just going to be so detrimental for comeback and Pix's match development here. But Scroll, Sky, ready to get the party started for Crumpet. And the main thing here too that a lot of people are kind of keeping in the back of their minds, I mean, Sky and Scroll, they had a very phenomenal Chapter 6 Takada, but not only that, Scroll also riding off the back of that solo series win, and like that is a huge accomplishment. But we know that they have big fighting power behind them, and so many teams now starting to kind of pull in from the surrounding areas. Bit of a riskier rotate by Ping and Kyoto, hoping that they're high up enough to kind of extend themselves outside of that render distance, but they are very low on the white HP right now, just hoping that they can touch down uncontested, essentially.
Feeling the nerves now. Glider is going to be heard at the distance they are, so we'll hope that they were able to make it down successfully. Pablo and Chino, I got high hopes for this duo. As you can see, there is 2 shockwaves in Pablo's inventory. As a reminder, you know, the cap that you can hold has been lowered to 4 from originally the 6 that you could. So when you had one player holding all the shocks and splitting, now, you know, that's a whole zone difference potentially. We'll see if it actually takes into effect later on, but
mild concerns though about how deep they were tucked away towards that south end of Fort Crumpet. I mean, having to make their way back over the hill when you know that there's already a couple of teams also based up around you, but supply drops have landed, and as Reese already alluded to, that is a good directional lead, and everyone is already on the move. Happy and Lucia just hoping that they can claim it. Big scenes though for Amasa and Podesai. They seem to have escaped that initial struggle there between Pink and Haris, and the Bear Army continues to rise through for the moment. But Prism, Casper, Fort Crumpet still a little bit of leverage here with the height holds, but can't really anticipate that teams are going to give very many opportunities for clear knocks or eliminations here. Casper and Prism are really going to have to lock in for it, just trying to see if they can level up their more fights along the way.
yeah, still green. I mean, it just shows the experience of the players in this lobby, making it so much more tough to get those tags. And also to clarify on your kind of airdrop comment that, you know, the next zone will have those airdrops in it. It's interesting. I know they were saying on the desk that some coaches are trying to figure out like one step ahead. It's like not only do the airdrops show the location of where the next one will be, but how can you
figure out
how to predict where they're gonna go? You know, it's like
Takada, if there's one thing I know for sure is that EU coaches always do their homework. And I mean, you know, not to discredit anybody on the NA season, I know a lot of the EU fellows also like to represent their NA teams, but Sven is by far a very leading mind in the Fortnite scenes, okay? You know he's always got a game plan figured out, and especially with the Polish powerhouse Darm and Dimish to follow behind him, that is a very spooky team to try and contend with.
Yeah, let's see it happen. I'm excited. So many big names. I mean, every name in this lobby has what it takes to get the job done, but iDropMarius not only being contested by one of the top duos, but you know, they also are one of the lead competitors to have what it takes. Sky and Scroll, fan favorites as well. The Danish Demons, they're getting gassed up on EU right now. You were even talking about it. No eliminations, but being on con, they are taking the safer route, and in the end game is where we're gonna see them shine.
Just wait to see how they choose to really try and beat some low ground demons. It's a layer that they definitely feel very comfortable with, but all these teams just try and scurry off, get set up into their positions, because things are really about to start heating up here. Takada, reboots soon to disable the moment that we took over into the start of 7th zone, so that's something that everybody has to keep in mind here, is that once you are eliminated, you are not coming back the moment that this zone closes and 7th is launched. So I think that so many players, they really just want to make sure they're fixated in their positions before things really kick off.
Oh, but for Marius, it's looking incredibly dangerous as he gets knocked down by Shark, and now the focus from iDrop, he's also cracked, gets eliminated right beside him. There's just 40 seconds left until respawns are completely disabled. So these players now are feeling the nerves.
Yeah, but they're just gone. They're toast. Shark and Teeny just absolutely decimating them. And that's the dangerous part about some of these crash pad rotates, or even when you're looking to shockwave forward, you don't want to draw the lobby focus, but it's hard to stay concealed, especially with how congested everything gets. I mean, the map's just not big enough for everyone, and Vico, Malabuka, this is a very problematic scene currently, as Vico wishes that he could find some kind of an opening here. Malabuka will manage to touch down just in time, but he's still going to be rather scuffed in comparison to some of these other teams. They're going to need a big refresh here. All the while, Shark and Teeny, they just continue to stay put. Got a really strong position, and they're also very aware of that team holding down hide and distance, Prism and Casper.
Yeah, great job looking back onto the rotates here. They just don't want to get buried in the dirt when all the players start rotating towards them. Chat Flixie going through where Malabuka, I believe, was eliminated, picking up some of the loot.
Chap and Flixie, though, they don't want to get caught out and just stuck. Sure, you always want to rotate when everybody else is, but when there are already some teams kind of leading more towards that front side of zone, it can be very difficult to actually break through into those positions. Hadis and Pink, though, they've managed to stay a little bit more committed towards these low ground areas, and Grappler there for Hadis, but crash pads could pose a threat here. They don't want to let anybody else follow suit behind them. Pablo and Chino just gonna get some friendly fire shots there. It's all about Pink, and it is just trying to claim their positionings here. As Chino, Pablo, they're gonna send themselves forward. So many teams underneath. Chap, Flixie still taking their time, though. They don't want to strike just yet. Don't want to overexpose yourself.
I love Pablo and Chino's position right now. Not only like literally, but the loadout they have, the mats, looking incredibly healthy to close out the later section of this game. Moving zones are already about to begin, and they are lined up perfectly to make something solid happen.
Only a matter of time, too, before Chino and Pablo potentially start setting up for some of these pre-edits in case they have teams that maybe look to try and pull up from behind them. A lot of lurking taking place, though. Ping and Kiro. Now, this is a team that could definitely pop off. People aren't wary of their positioning, but Shark, Teeny, they'll waste no time. They're going to immediately catapult themselves towards front side zone. Just box up for a moment. Maybe they can look back, try to see if there's anybody to pick off, but for the most part, Takada, they're looking to just take this open battle with Asa and Podesai if they choose to actually keep trying to challenge on those walls. Instead, it could even be a little bit of a cutoff here. Sky and Scroll now beginning to make their move through this secondary high, a little bit more towards that mid-ground position. They don't need to drop just yet, and they want to be careful not to get caught out inside of the water either. So many other teams seemingly struggling to keep their mats healthy.
A potential difficult pull here. It's almost safe to assume that it's gonna pull back, but it is gonna go towards the east. Chino Pablo now quick to rotate up ahead of zone. They have to be careful though with the pressure above. Gotta be aware of the shockwaves below. It's so much more things to keep in mind now with the pure chaos of Reload. Shark though, he's lost Teeny, playing as a solo once again ahead, but this is the game mode where you have the opportunity to clutch it alone.
If anything, this is probably the best opportunity that you'll have is in a Reload format. We saw so many solo clutches even taking place throughout the Heat group. So Twek and Midro though, all alone in the high ground. It doesn't seem like anybody's actually noticed that they're just tarping over ahead, but it could still be a incredibly dangerous position to try and lock down. Keep in mind those shockwaves, crash pads, it can be very difficult to kind of keep tabs on everything, and their builds maybe not as healthy as they would like them to be for holding down this high ground position, but with everybody getting so smothered in the layers down below, Chat Flixie, they know they've got to just keep trying to break through, but Shark, as a solo, he just burning through material so quickly. He needs to get out of sight of the high ground team, so he'll be forced to transition down into a lower layer, but he doesn't want to go to ultimate low just yet. He's got to wait until he's a little bit further back towards backside of zone because he needs a big refresh. He's got to catch somebody else off guard.
Yeah, no mobility. He's gonna have to ride the wave here, playing backside slowly. But there is an unexpected visitor knocking on his door. Haris right beside him. As Sky has been fully eliminated. Shark now starting with the rotate. 25 builds to work with. It's all wood though, as he goes back once again to play it slow, making use of that grenade met miss.
Yeah, but the vision is just so obscured, and the team on height actually posing such a problem right now for Haris. He is scrambling every which way, but Twek, Midro, they actually look to be in the best position currently just because they're out of the eye of focus. Darm gonna be forced to drop, just chopped out into this Memphis grenade. No idea which way to look. He's just trying to get a little bit of space here, but he's gonna be knocked. Doesn't actually find the wiggle room he needs. Chino, Pablo, now running down to their last few builds, and Chino, he just can't hold on any longer. He'll be knocked too. Prism and Casper now trying to see if there's anybody else that they can get tangled up with. A ping, Kiro. Everything is just falling apart next to them, but they're still managing to hold on.
Midro, Twek up above, still raining down onto the players below. Pablo doing what he can with the quick elimination, but he's got no med miss grenade to hold on to zone. He's looking back now, trying to figure out what's the rotate in. It's gonna be a shockwave play as Twek doing what he can to connect the previous builds and apply that pressure below. 2 med kits in the inventory, but the pressure on the ground is non-stop.
There are just so many solos staggered underneath them, but Pablo has a decent amount of builds. Still one more pizza slice to work with too. And he's got that Mythic Sentinel. That could be the real difference maker here, Takada. If he can get just a single tag, apply some good pressure onto any of the healthier duos remaining. Kiro now forced to try and use some of these pre-existing builds, but Midro and Twek have this lobby in the palm of their hands. It's all about closing things out. Pablo still secondary height position. Prism, Casper, ultimate low. Pablo down to his final 4 builds. He needs to try and pick somebody off the moment they go up, but Deemish doing everything he can to prevent that from happening, and it's gonna be a turn and burn onto Kiro. That is just one further lifeline, but he needs another siphon if he wants to keep trying to maintain his positioning, and Pablo will be claimed by Deemish right after. That's the siphon connection he was hoping for. Now just Casper and Prism underneath. He's hoping maybe Midro and Twek decide to get a little bit more involved, but Casper, Prism, just a little bit too healthy here. They'll finally take out Deemish. But when it comes down to a battle of attrition here, Takada, I fear Midro and Twek, they might have the upper hand.
Not only do they have the med miss grenade, a slurp as well in the inventory alongside the 2 med kits, and Casper knows this. He goes for the elimination, but gets shut down instantly by Twek and Midro, who are going to close out game 1. What a way to start the day, Taco.
Like initially, it's hard to believe that the high ground hold could just work out so buttery smooth. But Twek, Midro, they were just onto something different. They realized how smothered everybody else was in those congested lower layers, and they took full advantage of it. But Frankie, Reese, Levin, what have y'all got to say?
Thank you so much, guys. Yeah, that really did look super smooth for Twek and Midro. Like, they was totally unbothered in the top layers for so long, Levin.
Yeah, I mean, they made it look really, really easy. I think one of the big things in this meta, right, is how do you play height in a game where you have so many people with shockwaves, right, and dealing with that and like the layers you play, how high up, how aware you are of potential shockwavers, and I think Resub, a lot of people would have expected the players to do well on height who maybe have a bit more experience than the likes of the Midros and Tweks, right? They made it look like they've been playing height in like top level finals lobbies for years.
Absolutely, and they're clearly extremely well prepared for a Reload finals, right? They know the meta, they're playing height super duper early, and I love the fact that obviously they have the heal off, they have the potential to win, but they're still getting down, they're still getting close, they know that the other team might have more, they see the med miss grenades go down, they go for the frag, love it.
Only one elimination though, Reese. I guess that's to do with the height that they established.
Yeah, I mean, if you played height in a lobby with good players, they don't give you an opportunity when you're going for a rotate, right? You're like, a good player isn't just going to run in the open when you're in height and you can just beam them there. Plus, you combine that with the fact that a lot of the zones pulled back. There weren't really just that many opportunities to tag them. So for them, height early, it ended up being a pretty free game.
Yeah, I think more or less, right? Like, as much as I'm impressed by them, I'm curious to see what their games look like now without high, right? Of course, we still have so many more games ahead. Are they going to be as composed in those situations? Because I think they showed a great composure and, like you said, preparedness in that situation to play height that I'd like to see them apply, you know, some of the lower layers as well.
Well, we still have 7 games remaining, and there are going to be some duos who are out for revenge. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, though, we'll be talking about game number 1 in more detail. Welcome back to the Fortnite Reload Elite Series. If you've just joined us, sadly you missed game number 1, but don't worry because we've got 7 more coming your way. And I'm especially excited to see what Demus and Dom are going to be cooking up, Reese, because they did make it to the end game. Unfortunately, Demus had to fight off as a solo for a little bit, but to be fair, I'm not really that worried when I see either of these players solo.
No, one of the main things we know about this team is that they know how to frag if you get them to an end game. And they popped off with 7 elims total. This is actually the highest elims they had matched throughout the whole game. And kind of similar to what we saw through a lot of the other teams, there really wasn't much that happened to them in the early and mid game, right? They just played a very nice, concise, wait until they got stacked, and then Demus in particular absolutely popped off with the solo.
Look, in a game where we saw some of those Slurpee teams have their fair share of struggles, right? We bigged up Slurpee as being this top POI where, you know, you're going to have success coming out of it. And we said, Demus and Dom get the benefits of Slurpee without having to be involved in that mess. And we see that play out in this game where they're able to sort of just, like you say, Reese, get through the game, glide through smoothly. They get to endgame. And when it comes to endgame, we know it's Cash Money City with Demus and Dom, man. They ain't got problems there. And so a 3rd place finish to start the day is a very, very nice, you know, insight into what we could see more from these teams.
Should we talk about Chino and Pablo Wingo? They also had a great journey to the end game. I don't know if that's because the zone was in their favor. We saw obviously the zone pulling down towards Fort Crumpet, and they dropped just above at the logjam.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the main takeaways from this first match, and, you know, let's be real, it's a bit of a theme within Fortnite, is if you pull a good zone, then you're definitely in a good position, right? For Chino and Pablo, it was, as you said, Frankie, right where they dropped. But also, as we look to the leaderboard there, at the top, Prism and Casper, who are currently in 1st place after that first match, the zone pulled right on them. So over top 5 teams that we're seeing on the leaderboard already, 2 very favorable zones.
Look, Pablo and Chino are one of my favorite duos to watch. I think as far as individual quality goes, they can match up with any team in this lobby. Like, they are both so incredibly good, probably even the best. Let us know in the comments what you think about that one. But I think the big thing with these two is that, like, when they get to endgame, they're just going to make plays happen. And even if one of them goes down, like in that game, Chino goes down, Pablo has to clutch up a couple extra points. He absolutely can do that, and vice versa. So, again, that's another reason why these guys are going to be contending for one of them top 3 spots.
What about Sky and Scroll, though, 11? I feel like we want to see a bit more from them in the next game.
Yeah, I mean, look, they made it to endgame as we both would have expected, Reese, right? And I think we saw Scroll. I think it might have been Scroll who had gone down first there. And we didn't quite see how, but it looked like they were, when he went down, it looked like they were just sort of like in the midst of the congestion of the rest of the lobby a bit, right? Which isn't quite typical of what you expect for them. Yeah, you see here, Scroll goes down the sort of backside, struggling a bit to sort of find a good position. Again, I would say it's not the usual from what we see from these guys in endgame, and so I'd like to put it down to the circumstances they were in before. I'm not too worried yet, Reese, but something to consider.
No, I mean, most of their most successful matches that I've watched from them, in particular in Reload, is always, as I said, mentioned before this first game, they're always front, low. And as soon as I saw them earlier into that match on a kind of mid-ground, stuffed at the backside layer, not with a huge amount of mats, I just immediately knew, like, that's not as comfortable position for them, right? They thrive on getting to a good spot, fragging out and getting refreshes. There, they just kind of failed to. They did that jump around the side into the storm, and, you know, you have some of the best players in the world looking at you as you do that, and you know, one of you is going to get knocked.
Let's bring up the leaderboard again, because I don't think anyone expected at the start of the day to see Prism and Casper to be our 1st place duo. Again, 7 more games to go. Nothing yet is guaranteed. And, you know, it could be down to the zone, as we already mentioned, Levin.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as far as zones go, you kind of already mentioned it, Reese. Prism and Casper were blessed. If there is going to be one game where these guys had a good game today, it was going to be this one. Like, they didn't have to move practically the whole game. Zone just kept on pulling towards that Fort Crumpet POI. And so, again, I was impressed by them to actually go on and deliver on that, but it was as expected, right, with how favorable the zone was.
Yeah, and at the same time, you know, I just don't want to take away their flowers and just say, oh, they pulled zone, so they're top of the leaderboard. Like, they're clearly so good. They played that endgame incredibly well as well. Obviously, they had the advantage of having 150 and 150 mats going into the endgame, but they played out all the way up to a top 2nd, tried to make a play for win in the 1st place, and almost managed to make it work as well. So, sure, they were blessed with that, but, you know, they're obviously a talented team who made it here to start with and then performed very well.
Well, none of our duos who were dropping at Slurpy Swamps got bogged down in the situation, but they didn't exactly capitalize on all those duos around them either, Resub.
No, they really weren't able to, you know. We were expecting, well, to be honest, we wouldn't really know what we were expecting. But off spawn, this just went back and forth and back and forth. You see, iDrop went down first, and then Vico was also, he went down afterwards. So they kind of traded back and forth, and we saw them later into the match, both with relatively good materials. So despite the messy off spawn, they actually got to a good spot, but it all kind of just fell apart actually after that.
Yeah, I think we saw a bunch of the different potential problems these teams will have just outside of like the actual off-spawn fight itself, right? You have one situation where you might end up having, you know, to come out on the worst end of the fight, and then your loot is just on the recovery throughout the game. You have other people who then are just making micro mistakes when it comes to decision making and timing. It's not going to be an easy day at Slurpy.
It's not going to be easy for anyone, so let's head back to the map. It's time for game number 2.
Thank you, Frankie. It's not going to be easy, but it's definitely going to be interesting. Quick matches with the reload format and quick fights as we get right into game number 2.
Initial takeaway, though, after peeping that leaderboard, Takada, eliminations are certainly going to be a key factor here today. Because the fact of the matter is, Twek, Mindro, they might have won the lobby with the Victory Royale, but that still didn't put them in first place overall. Just thanks to the elimination counts. But iDrop,
Wait a second.
Redius, Vico, Malabuka. Just a constant give and take right now.
Pablo landing on top of Slurpy as well, as iDrop's actually going to jump right on up to him, but Pablo has full shield. He should be able to get the knock, even Elim here. But iDrop turns it around without having shield. How has he done it?
Last place that Pablo was probably expecting. He definitely looked pretty confident in that initial drop, but he is way out from where he wanted to be. Don't think that it was super intentional necessarily. Well, I mean, maybe the next drop-ins will give us a little bit more indication towards that, but for right now, at least, iDrop Maria is definitely not going to complain about finding that early elimination. Certainly sets them up with a nice few points. Podesai, Asa, still going back and forth here, though, with Pink and Hadis at Boom and Base. Not exactly one of those POIs that you can afford to split off evenly. They are going to have to duke it out yet again. Pink and Hadis, they want full control of this position. Podesai on the lurk. 2 builds to work with. Pink doesn't have any shields currently. That's going to be primary HP advantage, but Hadis, with that overhead view, he's got everything in his power to spot out a little lurk position that Podesai was trying to set up. And Asa, Podesai, one more time left to kind of hunt down the fringes of Boom and Base. Gotta be careful here, though, for Pink and Hadis. Never know when some other visitors might make themselves known.
Yeah, you don't want no unexpected visitors, especially at your POI in the early game. Next zone has appeared, but back to Dirty Docks, Sato, Momsy, Sharktini, once again, taking kind of the conservative split, the POI route.
The only way that I really see Shark and Teeny maybe looking to try and pressure Momsy and Sato a little bit harder here at Dirty Docks is if they feel like it'll make the difference for them with like elimination score counts in the leaderboard. As things begin to kind of roll over, we start to see how the points are really going to accumulate. That'll be, if you can establish an early dominance and get those constant reboot eliminations, that might be exactly the intentions from Shark and Teeny later on. But for right now, Pablo, Chino, back over at Logjam Lion, but still Chap, Flixie, a little bit more pressured here right now at Fort Crumpet. Prism and Casper, they decided they want to take affairs into their own hands. But Chap and Flixie, they are no rollover team.
Very good loot acquired from the drop there. Thinking back of these engagements too, you know, it is like Reese and Levin were mentioning, the zone plays a big factor on kind of how these players have their game plan set up for this early game. So maybe, you know, if there's an east side zone, we could see more engagements back at Dirty Docks. But Chap, Flixie have been playing incredibly consistent so far as we head over to Steamy, Stacks, Kiro, Ping.
decent amount of success in that first lobby for Ping and Kyoto. But they know they've got a decent amount of work cut out for them. The nice thing, though, about Steamy Stacks is that they can afford hang around a little bit longer. Pretty easy to make rotations. With Darkos and Minority kind of just lurking underneath them. This isn't like an early contest in comparison to some of these other teams, like Sky Scroll. They know Maria's eye drop nearby. Still not looking to take the bait just yet, though. They're content to just continue farming out as much material as they can gather. They're going to need it. And we're probably eliminated a little bit sooner than what they've been hoping for in that last lobby, but one more time, Takada, it's just really showcasing how much more difficult it really is when you keep cutting down to only finding exclusively the best reload teams from EU.
Yeah, they have been playing quite passive too, kind of staying away from Slurpee despite wanting to upgrade those Morphites as well. Beamish, Darm, just setting themselves up positioning wise here. You see a lot of kind of passive play, just getting max materials, getting your loadout you want, because later on in reload, I mean, you're so compact with the players around you, it's incredibly difficult to come back from, you know, getting eliminated despite being able to reboot. Actually having your resources recuperated, getting the loot is near impossible with this caliber of lobby.
But I'm feeling real good if I'm Darm or Deemish right now, especially after seeing Deemish just frying players nonstop, one after the other in those endgame moments. He really clutched up some solid placement points there too. But for Twek and Midro, they're just looking to try and replicate their early success from that first lobby. They did an excellent job of just holding down the high ground and just staying uncontested throughout. But might not be same case scenario for lobby 2. Prism, Casper, they know that they've still got Chet Flixie lurking, and it makes sense given that Chap and Flixie on that uncontested west side of Slurpee Swamp. So they're looking to try and maybe find a earlier pressure point. So Prism, Casper, being an uncontested team over by Fort Crumpet, it just makes sense to try and see what they can get.
Yeah, with a similar zone pull as well, these players are going to start kind of seeing the habits of the teams around them, where they like to base up, where they like to look for tags, and hopefully capitalize it as we move on throughout the day. It is 8 matches to be played out versus the standard, 6 in regular BR. Fix Combeck opting to kind of just reform a bit of Slurpee here. Entered Vico Malabuca's territory, close to Momsy Sado.
This could be real trouble right now, though, for Pablo and Chino. Forced to retreat. SnozQ and Multi are actually going to be the aggressors here. And you don't want to get too far caught out towards this southern position of Fort Crumpet. I mean, you get really easy to be held by a team like Prism and Casper or a little bit further in. Pablo, Chino, maybe just hoping that they can find a couple of quick and easy eliminations, but there's nothing quick and easy about this scale of lobby in the Reload Elite Series Finals, Takada. And they'll wait for the initial rotations to come through. First out of SnozQ and Multi. Not gonna bother sending any tags out just yet. They're fully aware of the fact they don't want to be held too far back, and they'll have to forfeit a little bit of pressure here, but it makes sense. They're just being reasonable. They don't want to draw too much focus.
Momsy Sado now looking to go against Saren Pazox. Oh. The thing with these, like you were mentioning in the last match, Taco, these early game kind of engagements with potential kind of constant ticks from Storm is you might be able to get away with it in opens or heats, but if you spend too much time here, we saw last game almost, I mean, basically did come down to a heal off. So with the med missed grenades in Sado's inventory, a key factor to the reload game mode currently, the meta of how these teams are playing out. You want to be able to tank as much Storm as possible in those final circles, and the more you do it now, the less you're going to be able to later.
But it's a solid dead side position currently for Sado and Momsy, and if they can avoid a lot of the congestion that became so problematic for some of these other teams later on, for some of those like 7th and 8th zone rotates. I mean, we even saw iDrop and Medius, they got picked off by Shark and Teeny, for example. It's just very difficult to actually move with so many players kind of just piled on top of each other. And not only that, Takada, but we are in 5th zone and yet every single team is still in this lobby. And I almost expect that to be a recurring theme up until the reboots disabled actually reign through at the start of that 7th zone, and it's just for good reason. Nobody wants to be the first one out, and sure, you can maybe build up a little bit of catch up off of elimination points, but these teams are just not giving a whole lot of anything to work with, and Casper, Prism, just waiting for their opportunity, but everybody can see where everyone else is based up at. There is pretty much nowhere to hide.
Yeah, completely open. Like you were mentioning, this is 6th zone closing. Once that 7th appears, reboots are completely disabled. So this is kind of your last chance to solidify yourself in a position where you want to play those moving zones. Podosai also, though, great job kind of rotating themselves in. What they do have to be careful of is not getting caught off guard too late when the zone's already closed and everybody's already made their rotates, because they're just going to end up being the focus on their way back. But for Kiro and Ping, might have got themselves into a little tussle, but so far looks quite safe.
A lot of these fights are still just kind of fizzling out on their own, but Lusha, Mappy, all he wants is for his duo to actually regroup with him. Kiddo and Ping, they're going to take their opening to just get a move on. But this is a rough spot to be now. Lusha and Mappy, you never want to be some of the last to rotate in. Very strong odds of being held on the edge of zone, especially when a team like Casper and Prism are still holding themselves as the centerpiece. They recognize the fact, hey, at least one player got eliminated, and that's an opportunity for us to try and take advantage of from the reboots. This chat Flixie just extending a lot of space here. They've carved out so many boxes. And Lusha already on the opposite end. Snotsky, Multi, Sharktini, there is just nowhere safe for him to look. Deemish Darm, though, on the other hand, they are rather isolated in Stilltown.
Next zone will be a half and half, so a lot of players kind of playing the edges here. Exofsky and Saren could get a massive pull if it ends up going back to them.
Teeny just sitting out with that Ranger shotgun. Can really pack a punch, but also got to be very wary of not drawing too much focus here. Happy and Lusha, they might not have any idea, though, that Teeny and Shark are still just sitting nearby. This is just such a prominent strategy, too, that Teeny has proven time and time again he loves to do. He will just set up in one spot, and he is so patient, and it almost always rewards him. Mappy and Lusha is still a little bit cautious.
Ooh.
They're moving forward, but Shark and Teeny, the moment they get behind them, they might find the opportunity to actually pounce. Snuz, Q, and Multi, though, they'll be forced to retreat. Pablo and Chino now going on the aggressive front here.
Looking to see if they can find an opening. They don't want to overextend themselves, though. They still have a bit of a rotate to come through. Potential shots now. Crash pad gonna be used. Want to stay grouped together is the big importance here. Gotta be careful of players landing in their box, but Shark and Teeny up in the clouds, making their way down.
Taking a little bit of lobby focus for it, but more than enough builds to work through. And they managed to pull themselves towards more of a dead side position. Break the rest of the lobby here. Fix Convec. Got 3 shockwaves, but they are going to have to expend some of their healing resources, replenish their shield. 1 Medmis grenade now remains, 4 picks. A refresh for a loadout switch up more than the builds. Could be the intention here as Vico, Malabuka saw them trying to get scrappy in that last lobby. It almost seems like after the first game, Takada, everyone has kind of just slowed down the pace a bit.
That they have 36 out of the 40 duos still up and running. 8th zone, as now the chaos is starting to unfold. Shark and Teeny in a good position, quickly cut off by Sky and Scroll, though, as players are falling like flies out of the sky, one after the other. What you want to do here is just make sure you're as close to as possible as to your duo.
Mappy doesn't even get the chance to land. It was already a very difficult spot, just having been eliminated. right before the reboot's disabled in the first place, but now he won't have an opportunity to come back. Kiro and Ping, everyone trying to make their plays for that front side high position, just getting nestled in here, but Kiro, Ping, they can't get comfortable anytime soon. They know that there's just too many players leading towards backside of their tarps here. They might actually have a moment to look for an isolation play onto Pix, but instead, Hydrop working his way up towards height. Asa and Podesai, and Podesai is a really interesting player too, just because one of the first times that we're seeing him not play with a French player, and it seems like he's had a good amount of success with that switch up onto Asa, but Hydra and Marius, they started things off hot at Slurpy Swamp one more time with that early limb onto Pablo, and now it's going to be Marius still holding down the high ground. A little bit of a chop there for iDrops. He'll be forced to drop, get a little bit more mixed in with the rest of the bunch, but Pablo realizes, hey, these teams are getting a little bit scatterbrained here on the bottom layers, and Marius, he's going to be eliminated, just two separated from iDrop. Too easy to pick off. Asa and Podesai scrapping for their lives now, and Asa will find the elimination onto Flixie, but he doesn't actually have a chance to get to the body just yet. Finally will get an opportunity to replenish all the Siphon materials, but that just gives the opening for Vico and Malabuka to now take over height.
Looking good. The issue is you need to stay a few layers above. Those shockwaves can be detrimental, especially in the later half of the game, but a lot of the players have to keep in mind it's med miss grenade time. You can tank zone, you can use it to get ahead, you can use it to retake height, but that just puts so much more pressure on the players in a good position. Malabuka sent all the way into Storm, has to find his way back to Vico. Luckily enough, he's got a med kit he can use here. A little bit of time to breathe as Chat picks up one more. Now the players down below in pure chaos in the swamp, tripping as Teeny and Shark are going to be the ones to look to hold on to high ground.
Nah, that was a full sabotage onto Vico and Malabuka, and getting shockwaved back so far into the storm. But Teeny, Shark, they might not have a lot of material here, Takada, but they've got all the positioning. That is up until teams begin to notice. They are going to chop them out. A reconnect almost immediately there from Teeny to hold on for the time being, but Sky, Scroll, low ground is where they had so much of their success in their heats and a lot of the reloads competition leading up to this series finals, but they're going to have to keep trying to control this front side position. Looking to cut off another team. Momzi Sato on the opposite end here. With Scroll, he's going to get himself knocked, and now Sky forced to try and see what he can put together as a solo. Sato and Momzi might just be able to fully overtake on that front side low position here now. Twek, Midro, opposite end of the scope from where they were in the last lobby, looking to see if they can get a little bit of leeway to build up here, but Teeny and Shark are doing an excellent job at defending their position.
They are looking up, though. You know they want it. You can tell they want a repeat of last match. Shark Teeny, though, they're not going to want to let that happen. Second height now for Myjo and Twek. Shark Teeny trying to connect to previous builds. They want to do what they can to hold on to the position as Shark's now cut off from his teammate. Twek, though, unexpected visitors. Quick pump gets connected. One elimination down, looking for the second, as now they got to get back ahead, but got to be careful. Player after player jumping into their box, but the good news is Twek isn't missing a single shot.
This is exactly what Twek needed. Every single one of those connections, every single one of those refreshes, his Chat will be eliminated. Sky right after. Mitro and Twek are just taking over 7 eliminations. If you hadn't heard of them before, you are certainly going to remember them right now. Josh, Pink, directly underneath. Twek and Mitro have really forced everybody in those lower layers, and Teeny, Shark, they're going to be forced to drop. They don't have any more materials. One more shockwave. Tweeny trying to see if he can find anything on the way back down, but all he's going to encounter is Twek and Mitro. He'll use his last shockwave to try and create a little bit of a gap, a little bit of space. But at this point, Takada, Twek and Mitro know what kind of advantage. They are fully in the saddle now. One more elimination. Shark, return fire. But it's just too little too late, as Darkos and Minori are now one of the only duos left standing here to deal with Twek and Mitro. Are we about to see a back-to-back? This is 3 medkits now for Mitro. Twek just trying to play Saboteur to the other healthy duo. And Minori, he's hoping for the Siphon, but against 2 medkits here for Mitro, that should just be it. Mitro will bring it home, but victory royale and the heal off secured.
They got the job done. It was looking like a trampoline park for a second with the Shockwave after Shockwave bouncy house action, but the back-to-back is gonna come through. Heal off once again, being able to close it out. Taco, honestly, if you didn't have these two on your radar, now you do. Put some respect on their name. Let's go back to the desk and see what they have to say.
Thank you very much. So it wasn't the zone thing. Twek and Midros are showing that they can conquer everything. And they don't just pick up a second victory royale. They pick up a load of eliminations with it, Reese.
Absolutely, and that's kind of a contrast to their first game. They won with a single elimination by just playing slow and high. And Levin, at the end of that game, you said, kind of scared to see how these zones pull. What do they do if something else happens? I mean, here's your answer.
That was about Prism. That was about a different
That
team.
was about Prism. Sorry, I'll give you that.
What I did say about Twix Duo, what I did say about them was I wanted to see, do they have the variety in their playstyle? They absolutely showed that in this game. Oh my goodness, they were moving nasty on some of their mid-ground layers. Like, I want to see the highlights because they were really clean. Some of the limbs they were picking up. You see this here, Twek. There's a point where he jumps in the box, yeah? He just slides across the guy's box. He doesn't say, right here. Oh, bang, slide, pump in the head, bang, you're gone. Back to the lobby. I mean, these guys, we might have just discovered like the GOATs right now of Reload. Like, where does this come from? Back-to-back games. I think all the people viewing partying right now would have done their top 5 lists. If any of them had Twek and Midro on their top 5, they have exposed themselves as time travelers. Nobody was expecting his team to have this type of performance. I'm very impressed. I mean, long may it continue.
I mean, I've looked at the top 5 predictions that people have made so far. I can tell you, you're correct. They're nowhere. I don't see them on any, and I can tell you right now, they weren't on mine either.
We've got to go to a short break. I've got so many questions. Hopefully you boys can answer them in just a few minutes.
Chat, there is no way that message just come through now.
welcome back to the Reload Elite Series. And game number 2 was a similar story for Twek and Midori. They picked up their second victory royale. But back-to-back was so impressive. I'm clearly lost for words. But also what was impressive was Casper and Prism, because we were a little bit hesitant to, as Reese would put it, give them their flowers after game number 1 because of the zones going in their favour. And similar-ish zones this time, Levin, but they were able to withstand some pressure.
Yes, again, a very good game from them. And I don't want to sound like the Prism and Casper here. I know Reese is about, what I'm about to say next, Reese is going to make me sound like I'm the Prism and Casper hater. But I would like to point out, yes, the zone wasn't directly on Fort Crumpet. It was near Slurpy Swamp is where we ended. So the zone pulled slightly further away from them. And the placement they got in the game was slightly worse. Look, it was still a good game. It was still a good game.
I can't believe you'd say that.
But just
I can't believe you'd say that. You're such a hater. I would never make that exact same analytical point that you were about to make. I would never do that.
Okay. Can I say, though, they got 6 elims. They got 6 elims because they only had 1 in the first game. So they put up some numbers this time.
Yeah, no, honestly, it's a really great start for them. I was always a big fan of Prism and Casper. Obviously, they were a team that made it to Globals in, 2024, I think it was, right? And again, when things went to trios, the switch up, they sort of like fell into the weeds as like being a top EU team. It's good to see both of them, again, maybe making their rise here in Reload and showing that they are still 2 top dogs in EU.
I am surprised by the lack of eliminations we're seeing early in the game, but I'm also surprised by the amount of high ground chaos, because that last game 11 was absolutely ridiculous. It felt like no teams could really establish it when you would expect them to, and then from there on, iDrop and Marius tried and again got chopped. It was like a Linkin Park song by the end. In the end, it didn't really matter.
It was crazy. Great reference. Reese, we've been talking about throwbacks with me and you back on the desk together. What this is reminding me is back in Chapter 2 days when we used to do this, and you'd always have game 1 of grand finals in FNCS would always be a team up on height, nobody touches them, nobody looks at them. That was Midra last game, right? Game 2, you'd always get every team in the lobby going, wait, game 1 height was free, we've got to try it. And like, we have the exact same parallel today where every team, it felt like they were going for height. It changed so many times there.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, we might sit here and say, oh, maybe they just learned from game 1. The team won because they're on height and now they knew. These players know that playing high ground's fine, but if we actually saw our best teams in the lobby in this game had a much better position to be on height. They were way more stacked. Like TD and Shark is a good example of there. Tried to take height like, I want to say 15 times. Maybe I'm under-exaggerating. I'm not even exaggerating here. Maybe it was 20.
So many times, yeah.
Exactly.
It was crazy.
Now they're up to like 1-0 builds, but like they played it earlier, did nothing, somehow got it, got chopped, repeated. I have no idea how they got to a top 3, by the way, with only a single elim by using so many mats, repeatedly trying to take height.
Sorry, I'm just in shock as well.
Replay doesn't get old. It just literally does not get old. Seeing how many times the Teeny kept going for that high ground. I was also obsessed with just seeing like Podesai and Acer like on the mid ground, just stuck second height, repeatedly not quite making it on time. Let's talk about Pablo as well. Pablo had a very interesting early game, but let's talk about the end game first because